Welcome to You Even Talking About, a podcast where we talk a little bit about everything. Today's guest is Jim Steele. He is a business speaker, executive coach, leadership facilitator, and one of the world's top business performance pioneers, and author of the book Unashamedly Superhuman. Welcome, Jim. Thank you for being on the show.
Hey, listen, I'm excited. It's great to get a chance to have a conversation and appear across the pond.
Yes, yes. And I was reading your book and I love it. Um,
Thank you.
I especially had a lot of fun with the imagery with superheroes because I'm a big comic book nerd. And if you saw my office, it's all done in comic books. So I definitely understood that a lot. Um,
Well,
first, the first question we have.
it's a nice setup. But
Go ahead, go
that's the
ahead.
problem with the superhero
It is.
element. It's a setup because as kids, no one doubted that we were superhumans as kids, right? But
Yeah,
I'm trying to make the point that there's a lot more to you and I than meets the eye. That's the point.
that is true. I learned that with a lot of experience myself, just going through a bunch of trauma and then, getting out of it and living a better life because of it and not dealing with it every day made it a lot easier in my life.
I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? Sometimes circumstance drives us to find out quite how capable we are. You know, it can be designed, and
It's
we can
true.
set up an aspiration that's demanding, which we then tap into this deep pool of potential we have. But oftentimes, it's on reflection. You go, "Wow, I don't know where I found that, but I found something," and I wanted to make that clear,
Yeah,
explicit, and strategic. You know.
I feel you on that. Okay, so the first question we usually ask is a question from the last guest. So they get to pick whatever question they wanted, and they don't even know who the next guest is. Your question is, what would you do today if you weren't afraid?
Wow. Okay. One of the things I like about jumping on a podcast is I come in with no notes, right? I'm just coming in and we'll see where the conversation goes. So I love that. So to start with that
Yeah, it's a
question,
discussion.
yeah, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
What would I do if I wasn't afraid? I tell you what, I wish I'd heard that question 30 years ago. You know, I haven't just come out of my 60th birthday. I'm not afraid of much now,
Happy
right?
belated.
Thank you. But when you get to this age, you kind of lose the fear. I find 30 years ago, I wish I'd known I didn't need to be so afraid, right? Because you're filled with these doubts and these insecurities that you kind of inherit or you acquire, and it gets in the way. So now I don't I don't have so much fear. I care less in a way, right? But I suppose okay, let me answer your question seriously. If I had no fear, I think I would still maintain that I would trust myself to step in to situations and still I look, I even now at my age I have aim high goals. And if you can put the fear to one side, I would just lean in more to the goals that I've set myself and um without any doubt, because doubts with good intentions, we have doubts because we try to want to prepare ourselves, but with good intentions, I think I'd more likely to lean in and take more risk, right? And just take on more challenge. That's what I would do with no fear. Take on more challenge. And I take on a fair amount.
I mean, that's why, in the book Dune, they say fear is the mind killer. So, worrying, just facilitates more of that.
It
So you
does,
just have to get around it, I think.
yeah, you do, but we have to appreciate that it's, our unconscious mind, it does that with good intention. It's trying to protect us. It's trying to warn us. The problem with fear is it keeps doing it. And you go, like, I get it. I'm not going to be complacent. I promise. But but the mind goes, oh, I got to keep you in this state of fear just in case you get complacent. And you're right. Fundamentally, it just triggers the brain chemistry that puts us into this fight or flight state that just stops us thinking clearly, stops us taking on the challenges that we really are capable of taking on. But let's not write it off. It's doing its best. It's trying to protect us, but we have to challenge it. And that's the point. You're right. You got to challenge that.
It's definitely true. So tell us a little bit about you and your journey. Uh, what got you to where you are, and how did you become one of the world's top performance pioneers?
Well, listen, I'll take that. Quite the mantle. If I was to backtrack, I left school quite young. I was 16. Um, I left school early, so I didn't go to university. I got into engineering because I had nothing else that I could really aspire to at that point. I broke out of that and got into sales and started to get into the business world. And very quickly, I became curious. And my curiosity was, why are the best people the best people? Why are the best performers the best performers? And I thought, is it education? Because we're kind of conditioned to believe it's based on your background, it's based on your upbringing, it's based on your education. And look, and there's something in that. There's an advantage there for sure. But that wasn't me. So I had to find a different answer to that question. So I started studying the top people in the company that I was in. Genuinely, I took holiday time, vacation time, and I would take my vacation and I would go and meet people in the business that were getting the best results and try and understand them and find out what they were thinking about, what was driving them. And I very quickly realized it wasn't their skill. It wasn't their competency. You got to be good to be in the game, but it wasn't that. There was something else about their mindset, the way what they believed, which is quite abstract, right? But I got a sense that I was inspired by that. I thought, well, I can do that. I can change the way I think. I can try and formulate better belief systems. I didn't know the structure of that back then, but that was my entry point to this sort of curiosity around performance. And then I got into I set up a consultancy with a few people looking at mindset and behavioral change back in the 90s. And I studied a lot of high performers. I work with a lot of people who are, exceptional. And I was like a sponge. I was taking the best of the best, and then I started talking about it. So I was an enthusiast. I was a participant. I wasn't, I wasn't professing to know anything other than I seem to think this is important. This seems to make a difference. I've been testing these ideas, and I started talking about it, and then I got asked to talk about it. And then suddenly this speaking career started, you know, and then it kind of launched from there, really. My curiosity for what makes the best the best. And when I say the best at what? Whether it's business, whether it's sales, whether it's management, leadership, whether it's the best at being calm under pressure, whether it's the best at being able to change and being agile in difficult circumstances. The questions kept coming. And everything I was learning, I was testing, and I found it helped my career, and it helped the people that I was talking to, and it made sense to them too. And that's really where it all began. And it's the same now. Even now at my, I mentioned my age. Maybe I shouldn't have, but even at my age, I'm still equally curious. I'm still fascinated by what is it about people that enables them to perform in situations? Where the pressure's on, where the chips are down. And I study as many, you know, entrepreneurial people who are coming at business from a fresh perspective as I do executives in global corporates. I'm still curious to find out what are the key, the key elements that make the difference.
I know growing up, I dealt with a lot of hardship, a lot of trauma, a lot of hardship, a lot of pain, and I feel like people don't use them enough in the science of looking at what makes people tough or what makes them the best at things. Because if you go into like a very poverty-stricken place and these people have no money and they are making it work for their families, a family of like seven, and they're not angry about it usually. They do what they have to do. They're really, close to their families. They're really, dedicated to all the things they do. And, it builds resilient people who can make it through, like global problems or,
Right.
dealing with like a pandemic. Like, they're just they're better equipped to handle those things because their lives have been under pressure for so long, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's an interesting take, and it's a great reframe to go, look, I've been through some difficulties, some challenge, and not everyone does. Look, we all come at life from a different perspective. Some have very different upbringings, very different advantages, very different challenges. But my take on this, and looking at some of the neuroscience behind willpower and resilience, is there's a very specific brain structure that's developed through challenge, right? And the more you can reflect on things, and yes, it was difficult, but I came through the other side. And even though you wouldn't want to go back, in some regard, take from it at least you are building the capacity to lean into more challenge. Because look, for most of us, there's going to be more challenge, right? So if you've built that sense of resilience, those coping mechanisms, that gives you an edge. That's giving you advantage, which you will draw on again moving forward. So yeah, I think there's always something you can take from those situations, even though you want to create new environments for yourself. Let's not forget quite what you've been through. And there's a question I often ask people when we talk about building confidence and a sense of personal certainty. And I often say, before you lean into the next challenge, just take a moment, just reflect, and just think back to something in the past where, a time in your life when you pushed through, when you found a way, right? And here's the question I want to ask you: what did that situation? What did you earn the right to say about yourself because of that situation? What did you earn the right to say? When people and I often say, look, don't tell me the situation. That's none of my business. But think back to one of those situations where you found a way to dig deep. What did it earn you the right to say? And you can tell me that, and they'll say, I was courageous. I was determined. I was driven. And I go, no, that's true. That's a factual attribute that you have as part of your personality. And that's going to take you places where if you hadn't been there, you wouldn't dare to go.
That makes so much sense. I know I went through a pretty bad psychotic break about 5 years ago, and coming out of that, it made me feel like I could do anything after I got out of it. Like I realized that I was alive and I had choices, and this was something I never thought I'd had growing. Like I was very negative mindset, and it made it hard to deal with life in a way that helped me move forward. So
Right.
I literally changed my entire mindset about things. And, things now I can get through. Like I always feel like, if there's something good that's gonna happen, I make sure I make a plan, but if something happens to that plan, I don't get upset about it. I take it with tries, and it's like I've been building toward this my entire life.
Yeah.
And because of who I am now I can deal with it. And now it doesn't affect me so much as it would years ago. And I thank God every day that I, have that mindset now because it's hard. People don't realize how hard it is to have that type of mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. And look,
It's just,
for
yeah,
most
I
of us,
just can't.
for most of us, yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
go
I'd
ahead,
say
go ahead.
hey, listen, we're a long way away from each other geographically, so there's a little bit, it's the wonder of Zoom, right? There's a little distortion, but
It is.
picking up picking up on your point, it's not that we want to go back and reproduce those difficult situations. We want to make things different. We want to create change, but you can take some sense of resolve from the fact that you have found a way to move through something, and those neural circuits in your brain are being created, and the idea is you can tap into those again moving forward, with other challenges, because and by the way, some of the things we have to deal with we didn't choose, right? But we want to choose challenges for ourselves. We want to aspire to create the change that we want, and that's a virtuous aspiration, and Where are you going to get the resolve to take on a challenge, an adventure in life? Well, possibly from your past, and you can draw from that, and create a more, a fulfilling space moving forward, using those same resources that you used when you had to, not because you wanted to, right? But now you can use them when on a situation that you want to create some change.
That's true. That is definitely true. So, what made you want to write Unashamedly Human, Superhuman?
Yeah, I tell you that the purpose of the book, and Unashamedly Superhuman, is quite a provocative title because most people aren't sitting there going, I'm superhuman. That's a strange claim to make. But what I wanted to do is look at some of the data, the neuroscience, some factual evidence about you and I, our nervous system, what we have built into us when we're born, like, Mother Nature's gift to us, are a set of systems that are quite remarkable. And I wanted to I wanted to prove to people that there's a lot more to you and I than meets the eye. Like I said, sometimes we find out in those situations that are demanding, but I wanted to say, well, let me tell you what those things are so you can choose to use them. So the three sections of the book are better, smarter, stronger. And better is all about tapping into potential. How do we actually tap into this deep pool of potential that we have, that we know is there, but we need to get access to it. And smarter is about mindset and how to really understand how to leverage and lean in to situations with an optimum mindset. And then stronger was more to do with resilience and, sort of energy management, because that's going to be required in any situation, right? So, the idea was to try and help people to understand, what it is about you that is quite remarkable, and tell you up front so you can tap into that and utilize some of these hacks. The book is full of performance and well-being hacks. And those two words are very important. So performance is important because it's life, right? That's about productivity. And then well-being is about sustainability. How can I sustain my performance? So well-being is an equally valid topic to talk about. And I wanted to tie those two things together and give people some strategies that they can go and test and judge by their own results. We always do that. We judge by our own results. So that was the thinking behind it.
I know because I'm about halfway through it right now, and I've found the hacks probably so helpful, so much more helpful than I realized. One was a breathing technique, and I used that one night, and it just blew my mind how much it helped me just be calm about my situation. I was going through a panic attack, and I was just having to get to that point in the book, and I was just like, let me try this. And I think it takes that moment of let me try this and see if it helps. And if it does, then you've got something new to use to help you move forward. And that's been my thing for the last few years, is moving forward.
Yeah, well, I'm so pleased about that because when I was looking at the content and what I was going to put into the book, it had to go through several filters for me. The first filter was I had to test it. So I wanted to test the ideas so I could look the reader in the eye and go, look, I don't make a big deal of it, but I found ways to test the content. The second one was that it was useful to people, that they could go and I can try this. I can try this in a situation and see if it works for me, right? You can judge by your own results. And the third one that was backed up with some credible data. It's not just my opinion. I dug deep into the neuroscience. I'm not a neuroscientist. Like I said, I'm an enthusiast. I'm a participant. All right. But I have clients and I have people that I work with. I want to prove to them there's data behind the things that I'm talking about. It's not just an opinion, right? But ultimately, like you say, some of these, and even things like that, like, I had no idea I was going to get into things like breathing techniques. I was sitting there going, look, we've all done our 10,000 hours on breathing. We've been breathing a long time, right? What are you going to tell me about breathing, right? Yes. And things like meditation and things like recovery, things that even like cold water exposure, I get into that. I mean, I had no idea I was going to go there, but the more I was talking to people about their strategies for high performance and well-being, these things kept coming up, right? So that breathing technique, and it probably is the one that I got from Professor Andrew Huberman from Stanford, where he talked about, the quickest way to decompress and to reset in the moment when your fight or flight's been activated is this double inhale exhale technique, right? Where you take an inhale, you go in again, you extend the exhale, and I'm going, that's like 5 seconds. What's that going to do? And he goes, well, just do it. See what happens. And I've been in situations where my heart rate's up, my palms are sweating. I'm about to be introduced to speak at a conference. I've been doing this 30 years, but I still get stressed. My heart rate's at 130, right? Now, all I know is when the fight or flight system's activated, it stops you thinking clearly. It's hard to think clearly under that pressure. Right? We've all got those pressure moments. So any little hack that can enable you to test it, de-stress, and shift the focus from the fight or flight system to the frontal cortex, where you get a little bit of clarity, and you might just make a slightly better decision, right? It doesn't make the stressful situation go away. We've still got to step in, right? That's life. But if I can find a little hack that gives me 5%, a 5% improvement on my ability to stay calm, stay relaxed. And when I learned that when you breathe in, it triggers the fight or flight system. That makes sense. Because if someone was behind you now and they went behind you, you'd stop and you go and you breathe in. And what that does is it raises the heart rate, it triggers the stress response, and it shifts your attention to that hyper alert state, which is perfectly fine. And it's a good system for about 5 seconds. We don't want it there 20 hours a day, right? Being triggered by life. So when you breathe in, your heart rate goes up. When you extend the exhale, your heart rate drops down again. And you go into the parasympathetic nervous system. You go into some resting state. It tricks the brain to go from stressed to rest. And you can do it. Like you say, you can do 3 of those. Breathe in at the top of the inhale, go again, extend the exhale, do 3 of those. And all you're going to find is you just feel a bit more coherent, a little more capable of handling the situation you're in. You still got to handle the situation. But the book is about marginal gains. I'm trying to find an edge. Give me something that I can test. Help me a little, right? And then see what happens. So I'm really enthused by the fact that you've tested it and found it to be relevant. It doesn't surprise me that it worked because it's good data. It's good science. But who knows this stuff? No one tells us this in school, right? You got your driving test. You got to do an exam. No one's going, try this little technique. You'll de-stress, you'll reset, you'll be a little more capable. No one told us this. And the book's all about that. I want to go, here's some stuff that we should be taught in school.
It definitely is, because they've been so helpful, especially with all the tests. That place is all about testing you. So why not give us the tools we need to be tested? It's like you're set up to fail.
Yeah, give us some techniques that'll help us psychologically and emotionally have a little more control, right? Instead of just pressing us. And I'm all for challenge, right? In fact, I'm a big believer in getting the balance right between stress and recovery. We need stress to build resilience, but it's no good having stress without coping mechanisms. You become overwhelmed, right? But if I go, I want to challenge myself to do something. Now, whether that's take on a new role, take on a responsibility, lean into that difficult conversation. Okay, what I need to do is prepare myself psychologically. So when I do, I'm feeling calm enough to cope and all my skills show up. All the things I've worked so hard, because just because we got skill and competence doesn't mean the competence shows up, right? It's a bit like if you imagine any golf club in the world, you go to the driving range and you see people hitting perfect shots in the practice area. And they go to the first tee where the game begins, put some money on it, put a crowd around them watching, and then stand back. And you'll see a very different level of performance there compared to the practice area. And you're going, you clearly have the skills. They're just not showing up. Because what shifts between the practice area and the high-stakes situation is the pressure's on. And when the pressure's on, the mind has to respond. So if I can train my mind to trigger a little more endorphin or some dopamine, these sort of brain chemicals that put us into a more controlled state rather than this hyper, cortisol fueled adrenaline rush, right? So how do you do that? So what I talk about in the book is, well, try and find some situations where you can trigger an adrenaline rush, but then while your body's really active, you then use these calming mechanisms, breathing techniques, there's 2 or 3 more I talk about in the book. So you're calming your mind while your body's active and activated. That you're training yourself so that when you go to the next situation which triggers you to be activated, you've already trained your brain to be able to respond in a resourceful way. And I even talk about, which sounds really niche and slightly weird, things like cold water immersion, right? Things like, taking an ice bath. I feel uncomfortable even talking about people's bathing habits, right? But if you jump into an ice bath or switch the shower on cold for about 60 seconds, you are going to get an adrenaline release. It's going to take your breath away. You're going to get a rush of adrenaline. It's exactly the same response to a difficult conversation, walking into a tough meeting, right? Whatever those things are that trigger us, it's the same thing psychologically. So if I can use something like that on purpose, like jump into the ice bath or whack on the cold, takes my breath away. But then what I do is I use some of these techniques to calm my mind whilst my body's activated. What starts to happen in life is those things that used to seem like a lot suddenly just seem a little more manageable. They just suddenly seem life feels like 10% more manageable. And I love those techniques because they're easy to do. They don't cost any money. They don't take much time or much skill, but you're training a part of your nervous system which is just going to help you in those things that really mean a lot to you. So I'm glad it worked for you.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely about trying things. If I'm reading a book and they say this works, I'm like, can I do that? Can I try it right now? And then if I do, and I'm like, okay, crap, that works. That's amazing. And then I'm like, I can use that again. I mean, it just shows you that, you learn something new every day. And, anything that's trying to help us do better in any type of way is great.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, yeah, and that's certainly the intention. And I needed it for myself. I need it for people around me who I can see need some of these ideas. Um, and if it achieves that outcome, that's a worthy pursuit.
Definitely. Definitely. I'm writing a book myself, and I'm in my second stage of editing. And I wanted to add more things people could try because I was like, okay, this isn't good. I think it's good. I wrote it. But I wanted to, add things that people could do and, to help them right then, because that's always been my goal, is to help people with realistic challenges and give them realistic, attainable things to do in order to reach their goals. So I definitely understand that part. And it's been I've I haven't found all the ones I want to use yet, but I found a few. And your book helped me think of some other ones or who I need to look into so I could use some of their stuff. I've definitely enjoyed everything I've read about or read in it so far. And I gotta finish it. Like I was reading today on the bus, and I got to a point and I was like, the bus is moving around too much because I outline everything. I outline every key factor for me in a book, and then I write all of it out, and that's the book I read. And so it makes it very interesting when you read it back because you realize how much you left out or how much that meant something to you. And I've been outlining a bunch. I've definitely been outlining a bunch.
Well, good for you. Listen, taking on that challenge, that's a challenge. Putting together your ideas and trying to put it into a book format. I tell you, that's you're leaving yourself out there, right? Because people are gonna, even when they're writing it, it's like people are gonna think this is what I think, and that there's a lot of heat on that, right? I found it
It
very
is.
difficult, quite a challenge, very challenging process. So good on you for taking it on. And I think any goal like that which stretches you, which it's like you're taking on an adventure there. And I talk about this idea of accept the adventure in the book, and this concept of an adventure. So it's a good word, right? So if psychologists use it a lot. If people are looking down the barrel of a future that's difficult, challenging, they're trying to work things out. That's challenging in itself. But when you can frame it and go, look, what if you just put this under the umbrella? This currently is the adventure of your life, because it is, right? And if you go, this is my adventure right now. The thing with an adventure is that everything's included, the good and the bad, the ups and the downs, the snakes and the ladders, right? If I go, do you want to come on an adventure? What does an adventure mean to you? People go, exciting, challenging, there's risk, right? There's the unknown, right? There's danger. Yeah, that's in there. right? There's
Yeah.
celebration, there's learning. Yeah, it's all in there, right? But when you go, yeah, that's what it feels like. But the value inherently is the adventure itself. That's the payback. It's not the results. It's not winning and losing. So if you can go, this project, this my goal, my ask, this 2024, 2025, I'm just going to put it under the umbrella of the adventure of my life. Apart from it factoring in everything, so everything's okay because it's going to be what it's going to be. It triggers a very specific, again, a specific brain chemistry, right? It triggers dopamine. This sort of dopamine's that brain chemistry that makes you feel like getting on the front foot, leaning in. If I say, "Do you want to come on an adventure?" You go, "What are you saying?" You psychologically lean in, right?
Yeah.
You don't know what it is yet, right? But the adventure feels like it's something to move towards. And when life's difficult or there's challenges that we got to factor in, the tendency is to step back and get on the back foot, right? But when you go, this is part of the adventure of my life for the next 12, 24 months, at the very least, you lean into it. And it needs you to do that. And the bigger the adventure you can take on, the more you're going to find out about yourself, the more potential you're going to tap into, you're going to release, right? This new version of you is going to show up. But leaning in is a critical element of that. So I like this concept of accepting the adventure because it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it's going to be rewarding. And I think that's the point.
I know there's a YouTuber, I think he's from Australia or New Zealand. He calls it his quest.
Right.
So, like,
Yeah,
just another word for, just like
yeah, I
adventure.
love it. I love it.
And it makes you think so much more about it than this is just a problem. Like when you
Right.
think problem, you think one thing and it's centered and it's going to be bad for me. And I
Yeah.
think with the words adventure and quest, that it makes you excited. It makes you want to do it just to see what it's about. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, if I can handle it. And anybody
Yeah.
who has any type of, risk love, like they're definitely going to be like, I'm game. I'm game what it is. Let's do it. And that's how I've been most of my life. Like about, especially when people told me I couldn't do something, I love to be like, oh yeah, watch this. And I made it a big part of my life for a long time where I did that. And then I noticed as an adult, like that started to wane some. So I'm trying to get back to that place because like I said, life was hard and it made me more fearful. Like we were talking about earlier, like that fear just set in. So I'm trying to move past that now. And I think
Yeah.
I'm doing a good job. And the book is definitely helping me learn about myself. And I'm very impatient. So I thought my first draft was going to be my best draft. And I was like, no, Mark, you got to edit this and you have to add things to it. There's more you want to say in this short amount of time where you have to say it because not everyone's going to get to hear your message, but those who want
Yeah.
to hear your message will. So you have to make sure it's good and you have to make sure it's, what you exactly want to say. And I didn't think it was going to be that complicated. I don't know why I thought that, but it was literally, it's so complicated. But it's
It's
fun.
challenging.
Like I like,
And
it's very
I
challenging. It's
found it very
fun.
hard. I mean, I took it, you right, 2 or 3 edits, and it was hard because it was, you almost get stuck going, is that enough now? Have I got to go again?
Yeah.
But it's worthwhile. I mean, a nice paradigm around fear is having a concept around um, the way you look at situations from the past or the future, where you take losing out of the equation. And I often say to people I'm working with, who likes to win? Everyone likes to win, right? Who likes to lose? Well, no one likes to lose. Okay. Who likes to learn? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll take a learn. I'm happy to go learning. Okay. So winning and learning, everyone's up for. And I think it's a good paradigm to go. You can look back on situations and go, okay, so what did I win? What did I do well? Even in those difficult situations, you can look back and go, okay, I pushed through. I gave it everything. It may not have been enough, but I gave it everything. There's a win there somewhere. Okay. What were my learning experiences? What if I had to go back through it again? What would I adjust? If I could change something? And you go, well, yeah, okay, maybe there's this. I wasn't so good. I could do that differently. Okay. Based on the learning, is there anything that you would change if you had to go forward? Well, maybe something, maybe nothing. Win, learn, change. when you take lose out of the equation, if I say no matter what's going to happen, when you step into this situation, two outcomes, just two. You're either going to win or you're going to learn how to win. They're the only two outcomes. Most people don't move away from winning and learning how to win. If you can frame life like that, it's winning or learning how to win. If it's winning or losing, I might win, I could screw up. It might go well, it might go badly. See, once you start putting in those two options, the nervous system tends to want to protect us and go, yeah, but what if it doesn't go well? Yeah, but what if you can't? And then it creates that sense of anxiety, that sense of fear. And again, it's done with good intentions. Now, my view here is we're not going to forget to prepare. So I don't need to be told I'm going to screw up over and over again. So if I can help my nervous system see life as a win or learn how to win game, that's a nice way to play, right? Because then that sense of of course, things may not go well. Okay, things don't go well. Okay, so you learn how to win. And then you reflect and you think about what you could change. You have to think about the change question, win, learn, change. But having that perception on difficulty, life is a win, learn, change game, not a win, lose game. And I've talked to this, and I've worked with many sports people, but high performing sports people. And the best of the best, they tend not to play win, lose. Even when they lose a point or they lose a match, they don't process it as loss. They process it as learn. This is a win, learn game. I reflect, I extract, I process, I move on. It's a win or learn how to win. And that's such a liberating way of seeing things that allows you to, again, stay on that front foot, So anyway, I wish you well with the book idea. I look forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I try to instill that in my kids too. Like if they try something and it doesn't work out for them, or like they fall or something, the first thing I do, instead of coddle them and be like, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, what did you learn? What did we learn? Like now you know not to do this thing or to do this thing. And it makes it easier for them so they don't think about the loss. And their mind isn't trained to think about, well, I failed. Because that mindset will eat at you. I've noticed that too. Like it will eat away at you.
Well, and also what happens then is you just avoid failing. So
Yeah.
I'll choose not to do things because I don't want to feel that feeling. And then that's fair enough, right? Because if I feel it's a win or lose situation, I want to avoid feeling like I'm losing. So I'll avoid the situation. Whereas if I see it as a win or learn how to win situation, there's nothing to avoid there. You're more likely to test yourself because you don't, look, here's the thing. Any situation where three things align, you're going to feel pressure. And those three things are the outcome is important to you. There's an element of uncertainty and you're going to be judged either by someone else or by yourself, which is oftentimes. And those three things align, we feel this sense of pressure, which can cause us to step back. So how do you mitigate against those three things? The outcome's important, it's a sense of uncertainty, and you're going to be judged. Well, if I see the situation as a win or learn how to win game, well, I'm going to learn how to win from this situation. So even if the situation doesn't go my way, I'm going to find something that's going to help me to prepare myself for the next situation. And I've worked with teams and said, look, how do you apply this? If you took out a piece of pen and paper on a journal, on your phone, on a tablet, I'd like once a week, just paused and just reflected and go, okay, what worked this week? Where were my wins? And it's really important to get the wins down and really let yourself have those, because we sometimes dismiss them and go, I ain't got time for that. What did I screw up? Right? They go straight there. Think about the wins, write a few down, pen to paper, look at it, see it in front of you, associate to it. Yeah, you know what I did? I did that well. That was okay. I did that well. I put in some effort there. I did my best I could. Yeah, that was good enough. That was a win. And then what are my learns? What can I reflect on and go, yeah, not perfect. What are my lessons here? Yeah, they're good lessons. They're good to know. It's good to flag those up so I'm aware of those. What would I do different next time round? 3 questions, win, learn, change. You get into the habit of doing that once a week for 10 minutes. And every week you make the notes, what my wins, learns, changes. What you see after a month or 2 months, you see patterns, right? You remind yourself of the wins so your brain gets trained to look for those more. And it wants those more. If you see the same learning experiences week after week, it's telling you you're not changing. You're not making an adjustment. right? But everyone I've worked with has done this, right? Everyone. I mean, it's consistent. What they see over weeks and months, they see progress. They see performance improvement. Their wins they get better wins, more wins. The learns change, right? The adjustments they make, but it puts them in control of this win or learn how to win way of looking at life. And what they do find is performance anxiety drops away because there's no fear of failure. There's no fear of screwing up. There's no fear of embarrassment. Why? Because that's not on the model. It's a win or learn how
Yep.
to model. So hey, it's a good strategy. It's in the book. It's a good
Yes,
strategy.
yes. It's such a good book. It really is such a good book. I'm so glad you wrote it. Um, I know there was another example, another hack, and it was writing the things that block you, no matter if it's you or the universe blocking you, and just to look at which ones are you doing this, and you'll be surprised about how many things could be you compared to not you.
Yeah, that's a great it's a great belief to have, and I'll mention the phrase in a second. It's a challenging one to get a hold of, right? Because what I'm saying to people is performance equals potential minus interference, right? Performance equals potential minus interference. Performance equals what we could be minus the stuff that gets in the way, right? And stuff gets in the way, and I'm very clear about that, right? And I say that, in the book, I say just write a list out of anything that is getting in the way of your performance, anything that can have a negative effect. And you brainstorm a list, and it's quite a negative list. On the list will be things like other people, situations, the markets, right? Global situations, global events. But, if you're honest with yourself and you have to be, it's only you answering the question. Well, what else is going? Well, my doubts, my energy levels, I'm a bit stressed in the situation. I haven't really committed. I don't know. You got to be honest. But when you write the list down, I then say, look at the list, and then separate the list into two lists. And those two lists are those things that you have no control over. Genuinely, I have no control over other people's behavior. I have no control over the markets, the global events, the weather. They get in the way, right? But I don't control that. I can't stop it happening. And then the second list is those things that you have some influence over, right? In some way, shape, or form. Whether I'm tired, whether I'm stressed. Well, stressful situation can stress me, but maybe I could do something to de-stress a little. What are the things you have some influence over? And then what I'm saying to people is, look, here's the cliche. If you can't affect it, accept it. If there's something on the list that's getting in the way that you can't affect, there's genuinely nothing about, give yourself a break and just accept it. And you go, yeah, but how can I accept it? I can't accept it. It's unacceptable. I go, I understand what you're saying, but for your own well-being, for a moment, and bear with me, if you can't affect it, accept it. Or if you're not going to affect it, accept it. But if you can't accept it, if there's something on that list getting in the way and you can't accept it, you've got to affect it. What are you going to do? That's the question I'm asking. I'm sort of saying, and then again, I tell the story in the book where I was working with a group, and there was a lady going, "I got a guy I work with. He's unbelievable. I can't work with him. It's unacceptable how he behaves, and I can't affect it. I've tried everything." And I go, "Okay, so you can't affect it. You can't affect it. Well, accept it then. It's the way it is."
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to, but what's your other alternative? Why should I accept it? I go, "Well, you shouldn't. But if you're not going to accept it, what are you going to do?" I've tried everything. And I go, look, here's the thing. You've got a situation that you can't accept and you can't affect. Now that's a bit like the news when it comes on TV and you go, well, that's just unacceptable. I mean, I can't do anything about it, but it's unacceptable. And all you're going to get is you're going to get hot, psychologically and physically hot, and it's going to burn energy and time. And I'm going, if you can't affect it, and you're not going to affect it, right? Just park it. I'm not saying accept it as being okay. I'm just going accept that you're not going to do anything about it and put your attention on the things that you are. And what I said to her was, that's my point. I'm not trying to be annoying. I'm winding you up, but my objective is to free you from this mental model where you've got something in your life that you can't accept and you can't affect. You've got to make a decision. Just decide either way. And if you can't affect it, just accept it. And then take your time and go, what are the things I can influence and do something about? And you know, again, it's not. I'm not trying to trivialize the things that are out there that you can't affect. But I'm just sort of saying you could burn 50% of your time and your life on those things, just getting hot and stressed. And I'm just going, I'm not sure that's the most productive way to move. So let's try and find a slightly different mental model, right? So yeah, that was the point of that conversation.
See, and I was just about to bring that up. Was the story with you and the lady, because I felt that, and I've had that moment in my life a few times where I was just like, "That's wrong," and they're like, "Yeah, it's wrong." I'm just like, I can't do anything about it though, and you're like, "But you can if you want to. There's always something you can try." And
If you want to, yeah,
yeah, if you want to, like, there's always something you can do. And just the fact that she finally just kind of relented and was like, "Yeah, you're right." Like,
yeah.
because
And I spoke to her again some months after that, and she had the meeting, and she had a conversation with this individual, and they kind of worked out the things that were getting in the way, and they found a way to move forward, because she chose to affect it. It wasn't her place to affect it. He's the guy that was the problem, right, in their working
yeah,
relationship. It wasn't her place, and she was justified, right? But I was just saying, your current mental model is not working, right?
yeah,
So yes, it's not your place to fix things, but you seem to have the problem. So what do you want
yeah.
to do, right? It's a challenging conversation, but it's a liberating one. That if you can look at situations and go, can I affect this, or am I going to? And if I'm not going
Yeah.
to, it's the same as going, I can't. So if you're not going to and you can't, it doesn't mean it's not relevant and it's not important and I get it, but put that over here whilst you then go, well, am I going to spend my 8 hours a day? And you only got, if you break your day down, 8 hours you're going to be asleep, give or take, if you're lucky. 8 hours you're going to be, in work, and 8 hours out of work, give or take. Make it simple.
Yeah.
So there's 16 hours where you're going to be thinking about something. So bearing in mind our thoughts are a conduit to how we feel, our emotions, they trigger our behaviors. I'm just kind of going, if we backtrack and go, what do I want to be thinking about, dedicating my time to, where I can have best effect on my life? And it's probably going to be those things that I can do something about, you know. And that's hard to argue with that, right? But it's done with good intentions, because it's designed to make people feel more empowered to focus on those things they can affect, right? Again, I reiterate many times, I'm not trivializing those things that you can't affect, but they can consume you. And when they do,
Yeah.
it just takes away the ability to affect the things that you can take some time to make some progress on. And just having that conversation with ourselves, for many people, can be quite liberating.
I mean, I feel like it's so much better to be moving forward than to be standing still. And a lot of those thought processes will make you stand still because that's all you'll be thinking about. So I think it's a
Yeah,
really good thing to actually,
yeah,
look at stuff and say, what can I fix? Because if you're doing that, you won't worry about the other stuff. And
right.
it just helps you in either way. Like, if you don't think about it, you won't think about it, and you
Yeah,
get more done. And
you
you're
start
not sitting
making
there all day.
progress.
Yeah, you're not just sitting there sulking or just stewing about things. And the only person that's mad is you, because that
Yeah,
was what my family always taught me. They were like, "Look, when you're mad at somebody, you're the only one mad.
yeah.
Everybody else has a different type of relationship with them. It can be anything, but you're the only one that's mad. So what are you going to do about it in order so you're not mad about it anymore? What can you do?"
It's like you're driving down the freeway and someone cuts you up in traffic, right? They cut right across you. They don't. Let's say they don't even know they've done it, or even if they do, they don't care. Meanwhile, we're the
Yeah,
one. We're the ones where our heart rate goes to 160. We're the ones kind of stressing out, making ourselves feel, and we can justifiably go, "Of course I'm stressed. Look what happened." And you go, "Yeah, but for how long?" Because they've gone there.
yeah,
You're never going to see him again. So what do you want to do? You can either spend the next 2 hours absolutely stressing out, or you can use that breathing technique and just try and reset, decompress for your own good and your own health, so you can get on with something more important. And it's like when you're talking
yeah,
to some, you can get into groups of conversations where the conversation is all about things we can't affect, things we know nothing about, but it consumes people. And if you ask that question, so what are we going to do about this? And they go, what do you mean? How can we affect it? Well, we can't affect it. Then we can do. Okay, well, I mean, let's kind of move on. Yeah, but I don't want to move on. It's not fair. I get it. It's not fair. I'm with you on that. I get it. But what should we do? Now, if we're going to go, well, we could do this, that's a better conversation. But if the answer
Yeah.
is not to do anything, look, or just go, look, let's enjoy bitching about something because it feels quite nice for a little while. But let's not spend the day on it, right? We got better things
Yeah.
to get, you know.
I mean, there was a situation that I was talking to a flat earther about flat Earth, and I was making my points. They were making theirs. I was like, but at the end of the day, are either one of us going to leave the planet anytime soon to find out? And she was like, no. I was like, then what's the point of trying to have this conversation? Because
Yeah,
there's nothing we can do to find out. So they say. Um,
right, right.
but
Okay.
I definitely, I understand that whole thought process of you just can't stew. Like you can't stew. It keeps you
Well,
just stuck in
it's
its
a good
own
question
mud.
it's a good question on beliefs. When you got people who got directly opposing beliefs on something, right? Who both believe that their view is the way it is. Um, the question I often ask is, well, what's the most useful thing to believe in this situation? Like whether I believe I can do something or I can't do something, that I'm right or I'm wrong. Well, okay, well, I mean, we can spend all day on that, but what's a really useful thing to believe right now in this situation? And it kind of almost kind of like changes the perspective of the conversation. I don't need
Yeah.
to be right, but I'm just going, is the belief that I've got helping me move forward? Is the belief that I've got empowering me? Is the belief that I've got enabling me to feel calm and confident in this situation? And the answer may be yes or no, but I might go, what's a better belief to have? What's a better way of seeing this situation moving forward? And of course, that's predicated by what you want. What do you want? Do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy? Do you want to be right, or do you want to be successful? Right? Well, that's a good question because some people just want to be right, right?
Yeah.
And if I had an
Yeah.
argument with it's like the way we sometimes can talk to our kids, and I'll tell them what to do, and I can have that sort of parental positional power, but it's not working. And you go, so what do you want? Do you want to keep doing what you're doing, and it's not working, or do you want to be successful? So, okay, well, what's another way of approaching this? What's another way of seeing this situation that might be more liberating or more effective? Because ultimately, we want this to work. If my current approach isn't working, you can bang on about being right all you like, but how's that working out for you? So sometimes the question, what's the better way of seeing this, is a good question to ask rather than who's right in this situation.
Well, I mean, it seems like, usually in those types of situations that it's either you're right or it's something else. And it's usually like whatever the thing is you're going against is, do you want to be right or do you want to be something else? And that something else is usually a better way of thinking about things.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things like, look, today is Tuesday right now. If today is Tuesday, on that, when you say today, you're right. There's no arguing with that, right? But if I go, today's an amazing Tuesday. Oh, that's not factually accurate. It may be your perspective right now on Tuesday, but it's not true. And most beliefs, I mean, look, that's a deep conversation, but most beliefs aren't based on factual evidence. I mean, some things are, right? This is a phone. No one's arguing with that. This is a great phone. Well, says who? Depends. It's not about factual accuracy with beliefs. It's like, is it the right belief? Well, I don't know. How's it working for you? What's a better way of seeing it? What's a better belief to have about myself or the situation or the person that I'm engaging with? That's a good question to ask. It requires a bit of a flexibility in our thinking and a growth mindset, maybe. Um,
Yeah,
some people are very fixed in their mindsets. That's challenging sometimes.
that's true. And, with everything going on in the world today, there's a lot of that going on. And it's really like what's the word I'm looking for? It's the majority at the time, like of people thinking that way about everything. And it
Right.
makes it, so it's letting you see who stands out with, I'm going to have a different mindset than the other a lot better than it used to, I think. Like you can tell the people who have a closed mind about something, we're not going to change their thoughts. They just want to be right. And, I've gone through that myself. And,
Yeah.
but you have to change that mindset. You have to, if you want to move forward in things. And I know I keep saying that move forward, but it's true. Like everything moves forward. So if you're not moving forward, you will get lost. And
Yeah.
it takes a lot today not to get lost. And I know this is for some of my listeners, but I always, I preach mindset just because I've been through it and I know how much it can devastate your life. And not to make it sound like the worst thing ever, but it can definitely change
Oh, it can.
your life. And you can have a different life altogether just because your mindset is one way. And
Mm.
it's something that a lot of people are working on, thank God. And but a lot more people should think about.
Well, I think you make the point at the end. But for many people, thinking is the problem. I don't want to think. I just want to go with the way I see things right now. And to stop and think about the way that I see things, that takes a lot of effort. And and they've got to undo, a lot of conditioning, right? And that's not easy for a lot of people. But yeah, just taking the time to pause and think, is this way of seeing things provoking the behaviors and getting the results that we want to have, that we want to see in a given situation? Or is the way I'm thinking about this provoking the behaviors, frankly, that isn't getting the results we want? It's a challenging conversation, but it's worthwhile to provoke a little bit of thinking. I think thinking's a good is a good place
It
to
really,
start.
it definitely is, and more people need to think more. It's just they just need to think more because I don't care what you're thinking about. Just think more, please. But
You
we're
just,
running
you
out of
just think
time.
it, yeah, just think, is it working? Just think, how's that working for you right now? This current
Yeah,
approach. Just why
and
not?
go
Just
with
think, okay,
and change. Really, this is not working so well. I think I'm gonna change what I'm doing. Yeah, try something new.
you know, yeah, I agree.
But we're running out of time, so I want to thank you for being on the show. I have one last question for you. Well, two, actually, two. I do that a lot. The first one is where can my listeners reach you or find you online? Where you can buy the book, all that.
Yeah, well, I could buy the book on Amazon for sure. You can find me at jimsteele.com or hplab.co.uk. So it'll take you to the same place. My business is the Holistic Performance Lab. Recently put together a really interesting program based on the book with the University of British Columbia in Canada.
Oh
So I
wow,
designed a digital online learning program, which really takes the best of the book into a learning experience that you'll find the link on my website. It's not even out yet. It's going to be launched in about the next 2 or 3 weeks. I filmed it in May. I saw it last week. I'm very excited about it. It's called Perform. Be better, be smarter, be stronger. So you can definitely check that out. Yeah, LinkedIn. Check me out on LinkedIn. Connect. Let's have a conversation.
if you need any people to try that out, that class, that course, let me know, please.
I will. Yeah, I'll be chatting to the university again next couple of weeks to chat about what the way forward is. But the program's built and it's I'm excited about it.
Awesome, awesome. And the last question I have for you is, what is the question you have for the next guest without knowing who the next guest is?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Okay. Well, we started off. We talked about um, adversity at the beginning and about how leaning into difficult things. And again, the neuroscience is in on this. The ability to lean into difficult things you don't want to do, specifically things you don't want to do, builds this brain structure. Um, don't get distracted by the name of it. It's called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Forget about that. But it builds this brain structure. Anytime you do something you don't want to do, this structure gets strengthened and it helps you. It builds the seat of willpower, the ability to lean into difficult things. So, and I've been talking about that quite a lot recently. So my question would be, what's one thing that you don't want to do that you still do that helps to build this structure in your brain that creates willpower? What's one thing that you don't want to do in life, but you still find a way to get it done?
Question. That's a good question. I like to end every episode with thank you for today, thank you for yesterday, and thank you for tomorrow. Always remember to question your reality, and at every end, there is a beginning. You guys take care and have a wonderful day.